My name's Andrew Phay. I work for the Whatcom Conservation District. I'm the IT and GIS person here. And I was asked to do this session, kind of give some information on what will be happening in the next few years because mostly of COVID. What do we mean by blended in-person and remote working options? What we mean is because of the pandemic, a lot of people, most districts had to start working from home. Some people just stayed in the office the entire time, one person in the office. But because of people working from home, we're going to be the remote, the blended in-person will be some people will be working from home part-time and in the office part-time. Going back and forth to work, hopefully it'll be a seamless experience. And some people will be at home and some people will be at work. So we're talking if you're how to deal with multiple people in the office and some at home, especially when you're doing conferences and meetings and that kind of stuff. Most of this we've been doing for the last few years. So some of this will seem, yeah, we've been doing that. So the new normal, because of the pandemic, people have gotten used to working from home. And they want to continue doing that, whether that's, 1 or 2 days a week, all week. People are loving working from home, and they want the choice. And some of this comes into the flexible hours. And as soon as you start working from home, it could be that you like to work from noon to 8 o'clock or 5 o'clock in the morning. Oh, can't imagine waking up that early to go to work, but 5 o'clock to 2 o'clock instead of 8 to 5:30. You can spread out your time throughout the day. And you can do that a lot easier working from home than you can being at the office. Some of the topics we're going to be looking at today, some of the requirements for working from home and some of the office suites that are out there, and some of the software and hardware working from home. This, I'm sure some of you found this out at the beginning of March or middle of March last year. You got to have a large bandwidth for working from home. And when I say large bandwidth, that doesn't mean just at home. If you're doing, if you're getting files from work, from the office through a hardware server at work, you need to have a large bandwidth in both locations, or you're going to have issues. And I had issues I had a pretty good bandwidth, but in April last year, Comcast knocked on my door and said, "Hey, can we fix your internet? It's causing issues for the rest of the neighborhood." They fixed my internet, yay! And it actually got a lot better. I won't go into that story. But you need a large bandwidth, especially if you're doing video conferencing, as we probably already know. Working from home, especially when you're working blended, the blended system, you will need to set up procedures. And we're talking procedures. We're talking procedures of how, like for us, status bars in Teams. We use this as sort of our in and out board. So we can tell if someone's busy, someone's available, someone's gone, someone's away for just a little bit, or we can set a duration. We can also set it, I'm on vacation for 2 weeks, don't bother me. But procedures on how it's going to work. If you're going in and out of the office, procedures on, who's at the office, what they need, that kind of stuff. You got to make sure that you have all those set up so you don't have issues later on down the line. And there's also the COVID procedures and all that kind of stuff. You also need to train your staff on how to do this. This is not an easy thing if you've never gone out of the office and back with files and worked with people in the office and back and at home at the same time. For the last year, a lot of us have worked strictly from home and are still working from home. But as soon as you start going in and out of the office with those files, with the email, with everything, you may run into some issues because of the way you worked for the last year. If you worked off a USB drive or off a VPN or something like that, well, now there's different procedures while you're in the office than when you were at home. So train your employees. If you're working in 365, train them, do one-on-one and create videos. OBS Studio is a great free screen capture software. You can create those videos on everything that they need to know and just list them out, and they can watch them as much as they want. I said this in the last session as well. You need to have your manager buy-in. Essentially what that means is the manager and the team leads, everybody has to start using these new procedures, if you're using Microsoft 365 or Google Suites, you actually have to start using it and not, oh, I'm still using everything off of my own desktop. It needs to be pushed and pushed hard if that person doesn't want to change. Well, you're going to have to change it for them. I'm one of those people, just change it and let the blocks fall where they will, and people get angry, but it needs to be done. A couple of the office suites out there, we went over 365 in the last session. We'll go over it a little bit here. That, and there's also Google Suites. I believe Snohomish is using Google Suite. It is now called Google Workspace. I found out last week, but it's still the Google Suite. That is one way of doing it as well. I prefer Microsoft 365, but there's others out there like Zoho, and there's probably about 10 or 15 others, but I would suggest not going those directions because each one of your users will have to learn that system. And learning that system can be a little difficult sometimes because they're not Word and they're not Excel and that kind of stuff. So they have to learn a new system. So using something that they already know is probably the better bet. Okay. Move some stuff out of the way. But in this presentation, we're going to focus on Microsoft 365 mostly, just because more districts are going to Microsoft 365 than they are going to Google Workspace, Google Suites, or any other system. So it'll mostly be along the 365 settings. If you don't know what Microsoft 365 is, it's Microsoft's Office suite that it's all based online. All the Microsoft Office apps, Word, Excel, Access, that kind of stuff. But it also comes with Teams, SharePoint, OneDrive, OneNote, and Outlook. There are, for us as conservation districts, there are two different licenses that we can get. Well, there's multiples, but the two that will work mostly for us is a G1 and a G3. The G1 is $8 a month, and the G3 is $18 approximately for both. The G1 is essentially mostly just email, but it also comes with all the online suite stuff. So it comes with SharePoint and OneDrive and Teams. It comes with that. but it doesn't come with the desktop versions of Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and Publisher and Access. That if you're jumping over this and you've already got Office 2016 or Office 2019, you may not need to get the G3, and you might be able to save some money. We at the Whatcom are still using the G1, and we'll probably go over in the next couple of years over to G3, but we're using Office 2016, which actually does work with the online environment. There are some caveats to that. We have some issues with Excel and stuff and sharing files, but it still works. I don't think 2013 works very well at all. So if you're coming from really old software, go to that G3 and just take that hit. You'll be happier in the long run, and everyone will be on the same footing. Everyone will have the same Word, the same Excel, the same Publisher, so on and so forth. Then there are the Google Workspace, Google Suites. That's about, for a business standard, is about $12 a month. And it gives you all of that, most of the stuff that Microsoft 365 has. I do not know about the compliance software for Google Suite or Google Workspace, but I'm sure there is something out there for that. Oh, and what I mean by compliance software is saving everything, including email and files and Teams and chats, for at least 2 years, in case you get a records request. One option besides those Office suites, and I set this up for a couple of districts, is a VPN, Virtual Private Network. And this allows you to essentially create a pipe that goes from the computer at home to the physical server at work, so that you have access to your U drive or your X drive or your shared drive or whatever. It is a way of getting those files from remotely. Is it the best way? No, but it is a free way, especially if you're running a Synology or some other server software. The 2 districts I've set this up for, they have a Synologies, and we set up Open VPN, and they can get to the files on the server. They can double click on them and open them or download them or whatever they need to. And it shows up just like they're in the office. And it looks just like, you know, the U drive, the P drive, whatever. It can be free, but it depending on how your system is set up, you could spend some money on it too. It can cause issues if you're opening a file, let's say a Word file, an Excel file, over a VPN, and your internet connection goes out, or something goes buggy, or someone else tries to open that file. It can cause issues with that. But you can still, it's like Word says, oh, you can't save this anymore. Well, you save it to your desktop and then move it back to the VPN. There's workarounds for it, but you can have issues on that kind of stuff. And there is no versioning when you're talking to VPN, unless you've got a very interesting setup and someone set this up for you. So if 2 people open the same file in something like SharePoint, Microsoft SharePoint says, oh, these 2 people are using the same file. I'm going to create 2 files instead of the 1, so in case someone saves something, so those things are not gone. The other way, if you're going over a VPN and it's not correct, you can cause issues on that. And there's no versioning on a typical VPN, depending on the server that you're using. Another option is remoting in through a remote desktop connection. And what that means is you can see from your home on your screen the literal desktop of your computer at work. So you need two computers, one at home, one at work, but you can remote desktop into that and you're essentially working on the desktop at work. So your mouse will move on the desktop at work. And it's kind of freaky to see the first time you see it, especially if you're walking around a dark office and someone else's monitor is on and their mouse is moving around and there's nobody sitting in front of that computer. But you can do that, and it needs computers on both sides. And we use this mostly for GIS and Access, because Access doesn't work well over the synchronized system like SharePoint. And GIS, too big of files. They're just massive files. Those 40 gigabyte aerial photos, you don't want to try to open it up from home because that 40 gigabyte file has to be downloaded to open that ArcMap project. A couple of remote desktop software, TeamViewer. If you've ever used me as tech support, you've used TeamViewer. I have a paid version because I do a lot of tech support, but it does cost a lot of money, $612 a year, and that's just for one user. You can't share that between multiple users. And it gets more expensive as more people get added. Log Me In, it's $350 a year. Just about, it's still expensive, and that's just one user. But you can go with Chrome Remote Desktop. I cannot vouch for the security of this, but it is free. But you do have to have Chrome installed on both desktops, and you have to be logged into the same account. And when I mean same account, it needs to be the same Google account. Google account does not mean Gmail account. You get a Google account when you get a Gmail account, but it does not mean you actually have to have a Gmail email to have a Google account. I know, confusing. But you can have a Google account that uses your work email address as your user account name. But as long as you have you're logged in on both sides, you can use Chrome Remote Desktop for free to remote desktop into the system. We have had issues of Chrome Remote Desktop logging out or the system rebooting or something like that. But as long as there's someone at work to deal with that, can you go log me into Chrome, and it gets set back up. But that's one of those are two options: remote desktop and VPN. The other options are the file synchronization, something like Microsoft 365, SharePoint, Google Drive, that kind of stuff. And Dropbox is also a synchronization. So you sync your files that you're working on in the cloud, and you can see the screenshot I took over on the right-hand side. Those are our SharePoint drives, our SharePoint folders or sites, depending on how you want to call them. And you can see the setup that we have, and each one of those folders has different subfolders and the cloud system, the status on the right-hand side. You can work from anywhere doing this, and we have people going on their vacations and work while they're there. You can seamlessly go, because of this setup, because you're using it at home and at work, the same system, you can go back and forth to work, and it doesn't matter. It's the same system. It's the same setup. You might have a better internet connection at work though. And you can also, in this setup, you can have two people, at least with OneDrive and SharePoint or Google Suite. You can have two people working on the same file at the same time, so they can see each other's edits as they're doing it. Because we're using Office 2016, we don't trust this very well. because 2016 doesn't work as well as the latest versions of Office. But if you're using the interface, the web interface for Word, Excel, or even through Teams, you can definitely see each other's edits as you go along. In Teams, you can work on those documents directly in the application Teams. If you only have 2 people in the office, you might be able to get away with something like Dropbox or Box, because you're not going to have lots and lots of people working, and you might be able to get away with it. It's not ideal. I wouldn't suggest it, but you probably could do that as long as you don't have massive amounts of files. Some offices, especially at the beginning of COVID, started using USB drives. I would not suggest that. There's no backups for that. If a fire comes or that USB drive goes dead on you, there's nothing you can, well, there's not much you can do about it without sending it off and spending $500 to get that data back, or more information, depending on how hard it is to get that data out of that USB drive. So I do not recommend that. Some of the icons, and these icons, they look somewhat similar to other Office suites. In 365, you have the, this is a new file. This is a new file, these little blue tick marks right there, glimmer marks as they call them. This is a new file. This one says, oh, we're having issues syncing. This one it's actually syncing right now. If that stays up for a long time, I would suggest rebooting OneDrive. And that, yeah, in tech support, there's the reboot the machine or reboot the program. There's a lot of that in OneDrive for us. If you're having issues with OneDrive, it's not syncing, reboot OneDrive. And to reboot OneDrive, you actually have to go down to your system control panel that's down in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and exit it from there to reboot it. This is it telling you it's up in the cloud and it has been shared with someone. And in SharePoint and OneDrive, you can share, well, in OneDrive, you can share your files with multiple people outside of the district. With SharePoint, because we're a government agency, you can only share it inside, what's in SharePoint, versus in the OneDrive, it's a little different. And then this means it's up in the cloud. It's not on your computer. So it doesn't need to take up that space. You can still see that file, but it doesn't have to take up space on your computer. And then this one says it's on your computer. We've synchronized it. It's on your computer. You can open it right away. If you double click on a file that's just says the cloud, it will download it, and then it will change it to this green checkbox with a hollow circle. Versus this one down here means you will always keep it on this device. So always keep your timesheet on your device or whatever. And you can easily turn that off when you need to. And switch back. Okay, a couple of screenshots here. This is our company drive, and you can see the events. The events right here are synchronizing, and so is the Exchange folder. And here you can see the always keep on this device. I right-clicked on this file, and always, if I hit that, it'll turn solid green, and it will continue keeping this on this device unless I click on it again and say free up space. And that comes in handy if you don't have any more space on your at-home computer. You can click that and say, hey, I don't want this. If I've got anything in this folder, I don't want it to be on my computer anymore. I need more space on my hard drive. If you're doing this and you're doing really large files, like I do video and we use SharePoint for it, and some of those videos get really large and I have to use the always keep on this device, and then every once in a while free up space so I have more room on my hard drive because I've only got a 500 gigabyte hard drive. So if you're going to buy a new computer and you're going to do something like video editing, get a really large hard drive. You can also use the view online, and this will open your browser and you can view it online instead of on your desktop. And maybe you want to do that so another person can edit it at the same time and see your edits at the same time. You can also use the share. And when you pop up share, you have choices of share it with anyone with a link, share it with this person. You can even set a time limit on it. Share it for just today, or in 2 weeks, it's no longer shared. Those settings are in there. There we go. Teams. This is really good for collaboration. Obviously, people have probably already used Teams as a chat and video chat and teleconferencing, that kind of stuff. But you can also use it, and I believe in Google Suites, there's a version of Teams in there, but you can use this for different teams like the CD staff. You can have separate channels under that CD staff. I have a channel called IT Help, and that I can post something to that, and everyone will get notifications of that post saying, I'm going to shut down the server today at 3 o'clock, or I'm rebooting the server, or there's nobody, you know. You can also put it into our general staff saying, hey, I'm going out of the office tomorrow, nobody's going to be in the office, just want to let everyone know. Or there's donuts in the conference room if anyone wants it. We've used it for that too. Kind of nice. You can also do certain subjects. So we have a water use efficiency team that we just set up a chat. We didn't set up a team, we just set up a chat in Microsoft Teams, and we can easily put stuff in there. We knew we're not going to have a team in there, so we just set up a separate chat. We can add people in, and in that we can have lots of files that people reference in there. So here's all the files in that water use efficiency team, and we can reference them years gone by if we wanted to. But we can also edit in that team or that chat at the same time. We can edit an Excel document if we wanted to. And you can do this from at home or at work, but having this ability, and it's all the same whether you're at home or at work, is very nice, instead of having to change your procedures whether you're at home or at work. Also, with Microsoft 365 or Google smartphones, it works on them all. So you can have an iPad or a smartphone or whatnot. It will work on those devices. So Teams, I've done team meetings that I need to see their IT setup, like what's plugged into what, or what version of that piece of hardware. I can actually fire up Teams and they can show me over the video what's happening. Phones. So working from home versus working from work. Some of us have, some districts, they don't get the phone calls at all. But when you're working in a blended environment, you need to get those phone calls. And what we've done, we have a voice over IP, a VoIP phone system. And with our hardware phones that are at each one of these desks, they have not moved from those desks in a year and a half. Nobody took them home. but you can set up a soft phone. It's essentially a software phone. It's called soft phone on your computer, your laptop, your Surface, your desktop, whatever, and use your headset that you use for teleconferences or whatever to make phone calls from that phone number. If you have a VoIP system, phone system, and most people do nowadays, some of you are still running off of PBXs, and you probably don't have this option. You can answer that you can get this option of a soft phone or on a mobile phone. So when someone calls my phone number here at work, it will ring on my hardware phone at work, my soft phone on my laptop computer, and my cell phone, because I have an app on there that also does that. And all the phone calls come through this. Of course, you can also forward your phone calls to a cell phone or your home phone and all that kind of stuff. But the software phones work really well. You can also, if it's depending on the VoIP system you have, you can unplug that phone, your hardware phone, and take it home and plug it into your router at work or at home, your Wi-Fi router at home, and it will also work there, and phone calls will go to there. That depends on the VoIP system you have. We didn't do that because we have the software phones, or they got forwarded to their cell phones, or they're answering them on their cell phones because of the app. Computers, if you're working from multiple systems, you can have desktops on both sides. Some people just took their entire desktop home with them to work from home. Well, if you're working from both locations, the blended environment, you can still do that, but you need a desktop at both locations and the software at both locations. But you do need to set that up. I don't suggest this, the desktop version, but you can do that. Laptops, you can move these laptops, and the amount of laptops bought in the last year is rather atrocious if you look at some of the stats, because people started doing this. And it moves back and forth with you. So you take it home and take it to work, take it home, take it to work. Docking stations. This is a very good idea if you're using laptops, because you can buy one for about $40 off of Amazon. It's third party, and it will plug into your laptop, and you will essentially have 2 monitors at work or 2 monitors at home, or add that extra monitor, or you don't have to use the keyboard on the laptop. You can use a regular keyboard and mouse. It also allows you more USB ports as well. But docking stations, if you're going to do a blended environment, unless you're using desktops, if you're using tablets and laptops, docking stations, in my opinion, are a must. And it just makes it seamless going back and forth from work. You just plug in that docking station, and whatever's plugged into that docking station, the keyboard and mouse, the monitors, the headsets, whatever, now is connected to that laptop. There's also tablets. Some people think you can use iPads and iPad Airs and that kind of stuff. I would not suggest this, but you can do it. It's just not very efficient, and it's not ideal. Using iPads for field work is a lot better for that kind of stuff, not for constantly working on it all day long. What we've gone to for blended work environment, and what I suggest instead of buying more desktops or buying laptops, well, laptops versus Surfaces, we'll get into that in a second, what you get. I think of essentially the Surface as a mobile workstation. It is technically a tablet, and you can use it as a tablet, but because of the docking stations we buy with those Surfaces, it's a full-on computer, and it's a lot smaller than a laptop. This is a Surface. I can pick it up with one hand, and it's nice. It fits in a nice little container, and it has stuff to go along with it. This is a laptop. Oh, this way. It's a lot bigger. If I had a choice, I would rather have a Surface if I'm going back and forth. But I have a large laptop because of GIS. A regular Surface will do GIS perfectly fine, but when I do GIS outside of the office, I do some really graphics intensive stuff. We've gone to mostly Surfaces, purchasing Surface. Now, whether you want a laptop or a Surface depends on what you're using it for. Working around the house and not in one spot. If you're jumping from the kitchen to the dining room to the living room to the office in the back to the patio out back, a laptop's going to be better. You can literally put it on your lap and use it. Versus a Surface, it doesn't. You can do it. It's just not conducive for it. If you don't want to set up an extra monitor, a laptop has a bigger screen usually than a Surface. If you're taking it back and forth to the office and you want a smaller package, a Surface is the better way to go. It's easier to pick up that little thing than that big laptop bag. Taking it into the field or classrooms or meetings, Surface all the way, because it's just smaller, it's easier and more compact. Using a docking station, especially if you're using a docking stations, I would suggest a Surface. Now, Frank at our office, when he got a choice between a laptop and a Surface, he wanted a laptop because of the working around the house. He was working from home and he was going between dining room and different rooms in the house. He didn't have one set spot to work from. So he chose the laptop, and he knew what he was getting into because I went through it all with him. He likes the form factor of the laptop more than the Surface. And now that he's working mostly from work, working from the office, he still plugs that laptop into his monitor at work, and his laptop sits off to the side, and he essentially uses the laptop as a docking station, and it works out great for him. So figure out what you need and then get that. I have a list. If you're gonna buy a Surface Pro 7, that's the latest version, unless they've come out with a new one in the last few weeks, buy it directly from Microsoft. Don't buy it from Amazon. I've purchased things from Amazon and ended up getting a different version. So just buy it from Microsoft. You get the 3 to 4 year warranty. It costs about the same anyways. And then you can get the warranty on all of these things. The keyboard, the docking stations, the ARC mouse. And the ARC mouse is this little thing. This is a mouse that it's, I think, about $40 to $60. But what we do with it is we leave it in this pouch right here. So when you get to a conference or a meeting, that's how you turn it on. It's very flat. It's very easy to use. I wouldn't say using this for long-term reasons. That's why you have a docking station. But when you're going to meetings and stuff, not having that bulky mouse in that little bag, very handy. It's worth the purchase. But then we get into all the accessories. People kind of freak out when I sell them. Well, you can buy a Surface. You also have to buy the keyboard, the docking station, the ARC mouse, and all the accessories that go with it. I have an Amazon wish list of all these items. One of the items is a USB dongle. They're off to the right there. It's a USB-C to video dongle. It actually does have USB 2 on it as well. So you can use this to expand. Like the Surface Pro 7 only has a USB-C port on it. It no longer has a USB 2, which is the bottom right one, the USB that everyone knows. So you actually have to use a dongle to be able to plug in a USB drive to it. But this video adapter, this video dongle, has one on it as well. But it also has a DVI, HDMI, and VGA. So if you're at a meeting and you need to connect to that projector, you need one of these. And again, we buy this when we buy the Surface, and it sits in that little case until you need it. But when you need it, you really need it. And you can't go, oh, I left that at home 6 months ago. It's like, just leave it in the case. You can also get a USB-C to HDMI cable, or DVI cable, or VGA cable. Those go directly from USB-C to an HDMI. And you notice on the docking station up here, those are the video ports. They are USB-C. They are not a regular video port like we're used to seeing. The older ones had display, mini display ports. These are USB-C, so you're gonna need to buy some of these cables to fit into that docking station. That's why I have them on this list. A case, we've gone with that, like I showed you, the little neoprene case. It works out really well. It has a little pocket, and it's very handy, and it stretches. That's the big thing. It stretches if you put a bunch of stuff in that pocket. For 10 bucks, 11 bucks, definitely worth it. Monitors, if you're gonna get a docking station, get your monitors when you build it into your Surface cost. And also, and that wish list is that dual monitor setup there. I think that's 30 bucks. It's definitely worth it. They used to, you used to have to spend 120 bucks for those things. Now it's not as much. The monitors though, because everyone bought them and there's issues with manufacturing monitors, the same monitor we bought last year is about $100 more. And we buy, on that list is an Acer 27-inch monitor, and that's what I'm actually running on right now. People think 27 inches is really, really big until they've worked on it for like 2 months, and it's like, oh, I could go bigger. But having multiple monitors, or at least one big monitor versus a small Surface, having that at home or whatnot is such an easier way to go about it. Extra keyboard and mouses. When you're dealing with docking stations, get them so you're not using that Surface keyboard all the time. And then I put this in here just in case you want this instead of the other dongle. It's just a straight USB-C to USB 3 adapter, so you can plug in those USB drives to that, and if you don't have the other video dongle. Other things you need to consider when working from home in this new world of teleconferencing and whatnot. I'm putting these things in here because of if you're going to work from home, you might need to add some more extra stuff into your hardware to make working from home. Yes, we've been working from home for a year, but I've seen a lot of really bad setups and heard a lot of bad audio. Getting the right audio equipment is a very good thing. And most of these, I think this one here is about $70 or $80. That's what I'm actually talking on right now. It is a standalone mic. We actually bought it so we can put it into the conference room for audio. So then we can plug it into a computer and it's omnidirectional, but it sounds really good. versus a microphone on a Surface or a laptop is directional. So everything in front of it will be picked up versus everything in back of it. So getting if you're dealing with a conference room setup, this blue, I can't remember, blue someone, who makes this? The blue Snowball is really good for omnidirectional sound versus just directional sound. This little thing is a Bluetooth adapter. If your desktop or your laptop does not have Bluetooth built in, for $10, you can buy one of those, or $8, and then you can use your Bluetooth headsets that you use for your cell phone. This one we buy for most of our staff here. It's $25, I think, and it's just a Logitech. I trust Logitech a lot, and it sounds really good. It looks a little funky when you're on calls, but it works really well. This one I bought for myself. I wanted something while I was working from home that will seal up really well. It cost, I think, $70 or $80, and it works over, uses a USB dongle to get the stuff. So I have like 70 feet of distance I can get from that. Okay, I think standalone mics are better sound quality than the mics that come with regular Surfaces and laptops, especially older laptops. Surfaces are pretty good, really good in most respects, but if you can get a standalone one, it's a lot better. Noise canceling headphones cost a lot more, and like technically this is the one in the lower right is noise canceling because it seals off your ears. But when you're talking electronic noise canceling, you can buy, they start at like $150, but they work really, really well. Webcams, if you're doing a lot of meetings and stuff like that, please invest in a $40, $50 webcam because they'll be better than usually what's on a laptop or a Surface. If you're doing a lot of meetings. If you're doing not a lot of meetings, just use the one that's there. And the biggest reason not to do, to rely if you're doing a lot of meetings is like the angles and that kind of stuff. The more expensive webcams will give you a better angle, especially if you can put it in front of your face and you don't have to hold the entire surface of the laptop up or prop that surface or the laptop up on something to get a good angle. And they have better lighting, better low light settings. But also add a light, please add a light to your system. If your picture looks like the lower left one, please add a light. And this one was $13 from Amazon. I bought this at the beginning of COVID, and it's a circle because you can literally put that on your camera around it. So your camera goes through that little circle, and it has multiple settings on it and different intensities. Please look professional. Some of these don't look, some people's stuff does not look too professional, and I have a problem with that. Keyboard and mouse, get an extra keyboard and mouse. If you're working on a laptop all day, you might start cramping on your fingers and hands. Monitors, dual monitors are a very good thing. Like I said, the $33 on Amazon, and docking stations. Just work efficiency and being comfortable is a very good thing. More comfort, less stress. Take the time to make your workspace and your home space, both of them, comfortable and efficient, so they look somewhat the same. So when you go back and forth, you're being efficient. This is just some of the stuff I've seen people put coffee makers by their work from home stuff. Do you need a better chair? I have a ball at home, and I have that particular chair at home. And it was a lot more comfortable on those things than that little stool I was using at the beginning. Do you need a better desk? More sunlight? Whether it's at home or at work. A lot of people like windows. I personally don't need a window, but some people do. Also, do you need a pool? I was down in California. I took a conference call in a pool, and it was awesome. 10 days, I got 1 hour in the pool of doing a conference call. So you can't do everything in a pool. Any questions?
All right, thanks, Andrew. Much appreciated.
Mm-hmm.
I think there was a comment about that you are absolutely the worst, Andrew. It was sarcasm. Damn you for your meetings and pools. Okay, a few comments actually to start off that were definitely in support of some of the things you said. The first one, that the Google Workspace has Google Vault and archived users for compliance based on the package. So for those who use Google Workspace, there are those tools. And also a plug for the use of TeamViewer, which is now connected with Malwarebytes and endpoint protection. This provides protection for all the users who are at home who may not have their own virus protection. So a plug for the paid version. And another comment, totally agree about purchasing directly from Microsoft. Craig mentioned that they bought a Surface off of Amazon and it came with Windows Home, not Pro, and it was a super pain to get corrected. There's some things you can't even return on Amazon.
So yeah, even buying through Microsoft, the Surface Pro will come with Microsoft Home, but you can easily just type in upgrade into the start menu and it will come up with Windows 10 Pro upgrade, and it costs $100 to upgrade for that computer. And I do that with all of our Surfaces. That's one of the first things I do, is upgrade it to Pro. So it's an extra $100, but definitely worth it because it's a work computer.
Great. Question, how do you feel about an, quote, OWL microphone for virtual board meetings?
OWL microphone, I'm guessing, and maybe that's a brand, I don't know.
And Mike, why don't you, if you want to raise your hand and ask direct, or maybe you can put a little bit more context into what exactly you're referring to, Andrew can answer. Another comment, Judy mentioned that she purchased a Surface Pro from Costco, and it came with an additional year warranty and included the keyboard cover and pen. So sometimes it's about shopping costs. Costco might, that is at least a space you can physically return something. So that might be an option.
I just looked up the OWL microphone. Yes, that would work. As long as you can get it connected to a Surface or a laptop, definitely worth it. And along the lines of if you purchase, any way you purchase a Surface, especially from Costco or third parties, make sure you get a 3 or 4 year warranty. I actually, one of our Surfaces displays about 2 or 3 weeks ago went dead on them, and she didn't know because it was plugged into a monitors. It could have gone dead on her like a week earlier or whatever, but the display went dead, and we had to actually replace it through Microsoft. And they did a pretty good job of sending us a box, and then I with the new Surface, and I'd sent that old Surface back in that box. So think about what would happen if you had to do that warranty. Would it be simple or would it be a hassle? And I didn't have, it wasn't a hassle through Microsoft. We figured out what was wrong. They sent me a new one.
Great, thanks. And I'll also give props. I love my Surface. So I can do a lot on this sucker. It's surprisingly powerful. But I will say, watch your battery life when running meetings. They'll tell you it's a 10-hour battery life. You try to do a Zoom meeting, it's about 2. Any advice on hybrid meetings where some folks are online and others are in person?
we're going to have our first board meeting next week or the week after. I think it might be next week, with a hybrid setup. And I will have a laptop in the conference room with a microphone, probably this blue Snowball, and it will be with the conference room projector and all that kind of stuff. You just set it up so that people can come into that space and see everyone at home. So if it is a laptop and you're only having one person call in, you can use that one laptop and everyone sees it. So imagine someone sitting around, you put it at the head of the table, and that person on the other end can see everyone else talking. If you have multiple people, you'll probably want to set up a laptop or a desktop or something like that with a camera, a separate camera that will show the entire board, the entire conference room, with a separate microphone that's sitting in the middle of the conference room. So large USB cables spread out. Just if you don't have a separate microphone, make sure you put that laptop or Surface or whatever at one end so that that directional mic is facing towards them. Because if that directional mic is facing the opposite direction, someone behind that laptop, the person on the other end will not be able to see it. And if you use the projector screen or like behind me, this used to be the old conference room or a small conference room. We have a old LCD screen back there. You can put that up somewhere and have that as the monitor for your Surface or your laptop. You can just plop that down somewhere. Yeah, people have extra TVs nowadays, so hopefully that answers the question.
I think it does.
Sure, yeah, make sure the sound and the video quality is good.
I'll also add to that, one of the most important things for having hybrid meetings is really good facilitation, so that the people who are online do not feel ignored. And I'll give a plug. The CTD recently sponsored a training with Ray Ledgerwood on good facilitation, and there was a big chunk on this hybrid thing, and that recording is posted on the CTD webpage under our training library. So I highly recommend going and watching that. Another question for you about two things about some of the hardware or whatever the technology bits you're using. What is your preferred wireless headset, and what kind of webcam are you currently using?
I'm currently using, for the webcam, I'm using a Logitech. I've been buying Logitech for like 20 years, and it just so happens it is Nicole's old Logitech webcam. I took it from her. I have a new one right back there. She's getting it back next week. But Logitech, I can't remember the actual version, but it costs about $70. April, May last year, it cost $260. It went up quite a bit, and they ran out of them pretty quickly. But I really enjoy the Logitech mouse, keyboards, all that kind of stuff, because they last a long time, in my opinion. Of course, it's just my opinion. For headsets, it kind of depends. For wireless headsets, for me, the one I showed you guys is a big, bulky one. Let me see if I can find the actual brand. It's rather bulky, and it comes with a USB dongle that you plug into something. I actually went for the USB over Bluetooth because other things use the Bluetooth, and the USB uses a wireless technology that gives you like 70 feet. And again, yeah, I chose Logitech for a wireless headset. Now, I also have this little thing. Let's see, yeah, that little thing. And because I'm using this as the microphone, I don't need the microphone in this little thing. And I use this daily at work just to listen to podcasts and that kind of stuff. So that's my audio. And that runs over Bluetooth with one of those Bluetooth dongles. That little tiny dongle I showed is connected to my my desktop here at work. And this is just a Bluetooth headset you can buy for your cell phone. And I think this one costs like 20 bucks. And the charging, it just snaps in there and it charges on a USB. And for like 20 bucks, they last 2 to 3 years. But all my sound comes through that, and it works out great. But I would not trust this for microphone. So I would buy something like that, the Logitech G533 wireless gaming headset, if you go in that direction. But it all depends on what you have. One of the ladies at work wanted to use her Bluetooth headset that she uses for her cell phone. So I got her one of those Bluetooth dongles. And she's great because now she has one thing that she has to carry around instead of multiples. So it just depends on what you're using it for.
Thanks, Andrew. And I'll give people like a side-by-side comparison of Andrew and I. So I am 100% functioning off of my Surface mic and camera. And this is the difference between our audio visual clarity, just so folks can see a difference. And I will say we're a little bit after noon. If Andrew, you can stick around. We had one more question about platforms, which I think I might be able to answer a little bit better and or give you a reference to a webinar. But I just want to quickly thank everybody for being here. The next sessions will start at 1 o'clock after lunch break. But there was a question that came in about, was there a discussion about using GoTo versus Zoom versus Microsoft Teams? And there was not. And I think at this point in the evolution of all these platforms, I'll kind of engage a little bit on this one. We did a webinar on this last year comparing across the board different platforms for you that is actually still pretty darn relevant. Not a lot, amazingly, has changed there. And that's in the webinar archives on the CTD website you can find. But I will say Microsoft Teams is great internally. You can use it externally, but it is probably the platform with the least amount of control from a user standpoint. It's a hazard, and it sucks to have to share on it a lot. So it's functional, it's part of your Microsoft set, and it's easy to make meetings. Yeah. Zoom versus GoToMeeting, clearly you guys are in the GoTo platform, so you can see the difference here. It is not as fancy. We don't have backgrounds. You don't have, you know, like all these fancy little emoticons you can use all over the place and things. Zoom really like stepped it up through COVID. They saw an opportunity and they launched on it. It's a very user functionality platform, if you will. Not as easy to control on the back end, let's say, but what I will tell you in the end is it doesn't matter what platform you choose. It's about how you get used to it. It's how well you can use it and or the cost or the functionality you need. You always want something that has a phone number that people can call in. We have to make sure that we can accommodate some of the bandwidth challenges and accessibility issues. Microsoft Teams takes a ton of bandwidth. A lot of people have trouble sharing camera or video because they just can't accommodate the bandwidth needs, versus something like GoTo has a lower bandwidth need. It's more accessible for folks, and it has the phone number call in with it, as do the others, depending on your paid version of it. So in a nutshell, Mike, hopefully that helps. But just to say, like at some point, you actually identified probably the only 3 platforms at this point that have elevated to a functionality. And then it's just choosing them. Teams comes with your whole set if you're in the Microsoft 365, and it might be what you use versus, you know, getting another system there that then has support for that. So it really depends on your district size, need, etc., for what you end up using in the long run.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you want to add to that, Andrew.
Well, No, you covered that quite well. Your Surface at home, is it propped up on something? Because it's right in front of your face.
It is propped up on something, so that otherwise I might be like here.
Uh-huh.
Or it actually would go this way if it was flat. It would.
Yeah.
So yes, I have to prop it up. I have a separate keyboard and a separate wireless mouse. I also have it connected with monitors behind me. So I definitely, but it's great. You just have to, if you want to do home and work with a Surface, the most important thing is remembering to take it with you. That is the hardest part. And this happens. We've had a person come to the office and be like, I left my Surface at home. I can't do anything, right? So that is one, except to say like, oh, except we have laptops at the office. I can pull that. Microsoft 365 is there for me. Boom. But just to say, and it's a good reason not to store anything important on your desktop ever. Always store it in your cloud-based file system so you can access it if you do forget something, if your computer dies, whatever. Never store anything on your desktop.